Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Welcome to another week. We're coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle on the Shawl address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Deputy Health Minister confident of resolving issues between Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association and their employer within 48 hours as a nationwide strike begins to bite, entering day 2. We are live with the General Secretary of the Nurses and Midwifery Council as we look more into this issue. Also, 3 accidents between Saturday and Sunday alone, killing 9 people, leaving 1 in coma and others battling for their lives. Last week, 23 people died from accidents. We look at the disturbing cycle in just 2 weeks and match it against the deliverables of the Road Safety Authority. Also in this package, NDC flag bearer John Mahama cut short his 4-day tour of the Bono region to return to Accra, citing voter register concerns as allegations of missing names fly around. We have details shortly. Why don't you join us and call your friends to join us on DSTV 421, Go TV 144. Also, we're streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles. You can join us with your thoughts, if you may, on 0540-109009. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. This is The Pulse. As usual, please be my guest. You're welcome. I'll take you through the details now. If you have been to hospital today, you do know what I'm going to talk about. Labor unrest within the health sector is biting hard on patients and families as they resort to self-medication. Many patients since Monday have been left unattended to at various public health facilities across the country, even as government assures of resolving the impasse in the next 48 hours. Let's touch base with our correspondents. They have been assessing the impact of this strike on patients. We start with Northeast region, where Ilyasu Tanko is reporting. Ilyasu. I'm hopeful that you hear me, Ilyasu. What can you report from your region? How is this strike playing out in the Northeast region?
Well, as you said in the into the very biting in the Northeast region here, we do know that the region has been hit with floods and communities, residents are trapped in their communities, unable to move in and out. And these residents get sick and they go through thick and thin to move from their flooded communities to get to where the facilities are, or health facilities are, only to be turned away. This morning, I visited the Wulugu facility, and this facility cater for about 13 other communities. And the facility is closed since morning. I was there when patients came in. One patient coming from Kurugu with a baby who they told me was suffering stomach pain. And there was nobody to attend to this baby. An old woman also came there, and there was nobody to attend to her. One other woman also said she was suffering from BP, and she came to the facility. There was no single health professional or nurse there to attend to her, and all of them went back home. And they said, they asked them what they were going to do now, and they said they were going to self-medicate. They were going to now rely on drugstores to get their prescriptions. In the Wale government hospital as well, yesterday we reported how a heavily pregnant woman was turned away. Today the situation remains the same. There are only 3 doctors at post. Yesterday the doctor at the female ward discharged all the patients there. Today the situation remains the same. Patients are still coming and they are being turned away by authorities of these facilities.
Now that couldn't be any easy. Let's hear from the patients themselves who are living this, pain. And then we'll come back to you, Ilyasu. Hang on for me. But listen to some of the patients that Ilyasu has been interacting with.
So monka ala BP.
Kaula tayan ng pumpon.
I am a BP patient. I came for my regular treatment and I am told the nurses are not being paid, so they are on strike. I don't know what to do next. I am going back to the house to treat myself.
So, yapo mi mayanishi, mambugira. Za yapo gira, mtukua,
Ankanaka Dr. Kanmogula Kayan.
I have body pains. I came to see a nurse, but I'm told they are on strike. I am going to the drugstore to get some medicine.
Very, elderly people who are having to live this pain. But Eliasu, have authorities within your region put in any response at all?
Well, the only response that I got a call from the gentleman who introduced himself as the public relations officer of the Ghana Health Service in the region here. He called to inquire the whereabouts of the pregnant patient that we spoke to at the Wale Wale Government Hospital. And they said they were making a follow-up to find out her condition, whether she was able to get a hospital and what is happening to her. That there have not been any comment coming from authorities in the region here.
And have they found this pregnant woman?
Not at all. I mean, yesterday when we saw her, she was in a very desperate situation. The woman, the caretaker, had told me that she was 9 months pregnant and she was in labor. But unfortunately, the hospital authorities had to turn her away. And at the time that we were speaking to her, the one taking care of her told us they were stranded. They were now going out to speak to other family members and find a way to, send her to a facility because they were told to go to either Bolaga, Tamale, or Nalirgo. Unfortunately, at the time that we spoke to her, they were stranded, didn't know exactly what to do. So as to speak, we do not know the whereabouts of this particular pregnant patient.
Eliasu, thank you. We'll be talking to the striking nurses and we'll also be talking to the authorities to find out how we can actually resolve this and stop the pain that the people you've mentioned and those who have spoken to you are going through. But right now, let's go to the northern region capital, Tamale. Martina Bugri is joining me from there. Martina, what can you report?
Well, what I can report is that the strike is still on. Patients who came earlier today had to leave the Tamale Teaching Hospital because nobody was there to attend to them. The OPD that is normally choked and booming with activities on a working day, especially after a holiday, was eventually empty. Only 2 people were seated. And somebody I spoke to earlier said he had come from the Volta region. The mom had a tumor on the head, and so they were coming for a surgery today, but that had to be postponed because nobody was there to help. And the guy seems very dead. Mom was okay from the tumor, and so he was a bit confused. I also went into the wards. At the wards, I went to the emergency ward where they were not admitting new patients. What they were doing was that those who were on admission, they were treating them. But anybody who came in, no matter the extent of your illness or accident, you were not going to be attended to. Now, I went to the antenatal side where mostly women will come in for antenatal in the morning. The pregnant women were lined up, but there was nobody to attend to them.
Okay, Martina, you were breaking a little bit along the line. So just so I know that we heard you clearly, you have been checking from the OPD through the emergency ward to the antenatal ward, and you did not find people were being taken care of in these wards. You say that at the OPD, it's usually packed, but today you couldn't find people like that. And you say that someone had brought their mother from the Volta region with a tumor on the head. They could not get help for that. Where is that person at the moment?
Yes. At the time I was leaving the hospital, he was still there with the mom. The woman could not, she just couldn't stand the pain. She had used a cloth to tie the whole head. And you could see her eventually in tears. I mean, the pain was so excruciating. You could feel it in her eyes, you know. But they had nothing to do. He said they were going to hang on, hoping that the doctor would tell them something. But if that doesn't happen, it means that he would have to return to the Volta region with the mother again.
Martina, hang on for me. Let's listen to this person and we'll get back to Martina.
My mom has a tumor on the forehead. So we're asked to come back for review somewhere last month. Today is our third time of coming here. But normally when we come by this time, the matter have already started. So we came over yesterday. We slept over here yesterday.
Where did you come from? From
Volta region, specifically Sugapope. But today it seems nothing is going on. So I'm confused. I don't know what is going on.
Have you spoken to any official? What have they been telling you?
Actually, I haven't spoken with any of them. And it seems nobody seems to care about what is going on.
How's your mom doing?
The situation is getting worse. Initially when we came, it wasn't like this. But somewhere foregoing, she started bleeding from the spot. I don't know if someone can really help us in this situation.
What's your
first time coming here? So that's alright. So I can't tell why they are
What's wrong with you?
My eye. My eyes have been since last week, so I decided to begin on it. I guess alright.
But you normally would meet people here when you come. Is that
yes. But today I haven't met the people.
Martina, very disturbing stories, I must say, especially with a guy whose mother has the tumor. But where are the doctors?
The doctors are around, but who would lead you through the process to get to see the doctor? That is where the challenge is. And so when I spoke to one of the patients, he said that he was told that he can go with his folder. If the doctor says, okay, bring it in, I will attend to you myself, then he will be able to get treatment. If not, there is nothing they could do. Now, the northern region has a more challenging situation because you cannot count up to 5 well-equipped hospitals or health facilities which can take in these numbers. And so it means that several people who are sick now would have the big challenge seeking health care.
And that's very challenging, also because the Tamale Teaching Hospital doesn't just serve people within Tamale, but people in the Ashanti region, from parts of Techiman, etc. You've spoken to someone who came all the way from the Volta region. Are there other people who have traveled all the way to this region just to get health care and they're not getting?
Yes, I spoke to someone else who also came from the northeast region. He said he was referred from that hospital to the Tamale Teaching Hospital, and there was nobody to attend to him.
Martina, thank you very much. Martina Bugri is reporting from the northern regional capital of Tamale Teaching Hospital, to be precise. And as she puts it, there aren't well-equipped hospitals across in this particular region or in this particular area to help other people. And the Tamale Teaching Hospital attracts people all the way from Techiman, from the Ashanti region, etc. Let's get to Anas Sabit. He's joining us from Bono East region. Hello, Anas. Anas, I've spoken to Northeast region, I've spoken to Northern region. The story is that, in fact, if you look at the Northeast region, they've just had a recent flooding that's compounding the case. If you look at the the Tamale Teaching Hospital, it attracts people from outside the region. What is the story in the Bono East region?
The situation is same here. In Tichiman, for instance, we have the Holy Family Hospital, which is a Catholic institution. We also have the Ahmadiyya Muslim Hospital, which is also a Muslim hospital. All these hospitals have been affected. When I go to the Ahmadiyya Muslim Hospital, the labor ward or the maternity ward was virtually empty. I had the opportunity to engage our authorities, and they referred most of the inpatients they were having by the weekend. They have to refer them to other private hospitals because there were no nurses on the grounds to help them take care of these patients. We also know that for the Ahmadiyya Muslim Hospital, out of the over 130 nurses and midwives they were having, none of them was around. So it is the pharmacists, the doctors, and then some officers at the finance department who were helping in taking care of the records of the patients who are in dire need, for the few doctors on the grounds to take care of them. So they have no choice but to refer to most of these patients outside. I have also had the opportunity to engage some of these patients. One woman, for instance, told me she will have no choice but to go home and then look up to God because she did not have the financial muscle to pay for the bills when she gets to the private hospital. So the situation is here. Those who have the financial muscle are okay to go to the private hospital.
Private hospitals.
The many we've engaged are saying you have to go home and then resort to self-medication and then look up to God and then see what happens.
What are authorities in the region saying, if they have at all?
Well, their call is on government to attend or to respond to the calls of these nurses, because they tell me without the nurses, there's no way they will be able to embark on their work as hospitals or as health facilities. For instance, when I go to the Holy Family, like I said, these are mission hospitals, so they have to do some internal arrangements to get people who are internally taken care of in terms of their payments. So these people were around to take care of the OPD services together with the doctors. I've also had the opportunity to go to other health centers in the rural areas, and that is where the situation is very, very terrible. Because
tell us about it.
I visited one community, which is Boyam, and the health center was closed down. I didn't meet anyone because those health centers do not have inpatients. They take care of the patients on a daily basis. They are nowhere closer to the hospital. So patients get there and they have to go home by themselves. So this is the situation from the little places we have visited so far.
Thank you very much. Anas Sabit is joining us from Bono East, where as he is reporting, some of the health centers are totally closed up. Let's get to the Volta region, find out what Ivy can report from the Ho Teaching Hospital. Some patients were told are stranded. Ivy, give us more details.
So I went to the municipal hospital in Ho, as well as the Ho Teaching Hospital, where patients, especially at the municipal hospital, were asked to go back to other private hospitals because nurses were not there to help. When I got there at the Ho Municipal Hospital, I realized that at the OPD, there was no nurse. Even the doctor's rooms or consulting rooms, there was no sign of any nurse there. The Ho Teaching Hospital also had the same issue. Was a lot of patients were trooping in every minute to see doctors, yet no one was there. I spoke to one of the doctors in one of the hospitals who said he wanted to remain anonymous because of some security issues. He said that it was very worrying to see that nurses, even though they have issues, but it was really worrying to see nurses have interest in money more than human beings. He said he had to ask 2 of his nurses to stay back in the hospital and take care of some babies who are currently on oxygen and their mothers. And so he has to beg these nurses to stay back to help in that manner. So he is doing everything with other doctors there. So the situation is very patients there, and there is nothing they can do because nurses are not there to help, only the doctors. And so when they get there, they have to go to the private hospital. And those who don't have the money to go to the private hospital are stranded. So the situation is really, really bad.
Let's hear from some of the patients that Ivy has been talking to.
I came to the hospital around 9 o'clock. They knew they were on strike, but they took our folders and made us join a queue. I have just been told the nurses are not working. What do they expect us to do now? I am going back home.
Certainly a very worrying situation. Ivy, have authorities, and I'm talking about, say, municipal health authorities, metropolitan health authorities, whatever it is there is, have they responded in any way? Have they said anything?
No, right now, I'm not ready to speak for the info now. I'm sure they will want to speak later. Maybe the office will have to call them. We were not able to talk to any officials from the hospital or on camera, of course, or anyone from the regional directors or district directors. So no one is able to speak with that. But we only hope that by this evening or tomorrow, they are able to speak with us on the issue. But Gifty, seriously, the situation is really, really alarming.
Ivy, thank you very much for that update. Ivy Setoji has joined us from the Volta region, from where she is reporting that patients are stranded, and you heard one of them. Let's come down here to Accra, the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. Doctors there are picking up extra roles to contain the situation. Medical Director at the facility, Dr. Emmanuel Srofenyo, says the measure is unsustainable and wants government to promptly settle the issues with the striking nurses.
I said earlier on, the kind of situation we have now is not sustainable. So we are only pleading on government to bring their good offices to bear so that this strike is averted, so that it will not lead to any loss of life or loss of maybe increased morbidity. The kind of system we are running cannot be the way to go. It cannot be the routine. It cannot become the routine. It can't really go that far. It cannot be the routine, because then the doctors are being stretched. Let me give you one example. We have just about 150 doctors, but we have 700 nurses. And so when those 700 nurses are not there, the doctors cannot run their normal duty and then now come and take over the nursing functions. It is not possible, because looking at even the numbers, assuming they could do, but looking at the numbers that have gone away, that is this hospital alone, do you see? So even the figures alone should tell us that the situation cannot be the way to go into the future. So sooner or later, we are only pleading that government will come into some kind of solution with the feeding staff so that they can resume. Nurses are clinicians who are providing service at the front line. And so when you talk about the criticalness of the situation, this situation is more critical than the previous one. And so we are not praying for a similar situation that happened in the past, and that this thing will drag on for 2 months. It will really be a huge blow to the health system in this critical moment. Because the doctors are working, the hospital will not close down completely. We will sit down and devise systems that will enable us provide some service to the critically ill patients who need emergency services, like those who are involved in road traffic accident, we'll have to see to them. Those who have severe acute conditions that need immediate intervention, maybe surgical or medical treatment, we will have to take over. We will still have to provide systems to look after these people. But then healthcare will still be limited, because we will then have about 700 staffs who are no longer coming to the doorsteps, coming to the front line to provide service.
So that's the medical director of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital saying that this is a more critical situation than it is the previous industrial action that was taken by the nurses. He's hopeful that there will be some solution from government. You'll hear what the Deputy Health Minister has to say, but let's hear from some patients at this facility.
Okay, I'm coming here all the way from Amasaman through this heavy traffic to be here, and just to hear that only one doctor will be available after waiting about 3 or 4 hours now. Only one doctor, and if your case isn't that severe, maybe you don't have anything showing you should go home, then you have to wait and see just one doctor in this big hospital. So I'm just going to take my lab and return home, and my case too needs immediate attention, but per what's happening, I can't be here for the whole day, and I don't even think I'll see the doctor because the number is large here.
But you didn't know that the nurses were on strike?
No, I didn't know. I heard about it yesterday. I was here, but I thought because it was holiday, that's why the place was not quite active. But today, it's like it's active and there are no nurses. That's why I came, and I'm coming for my lab to see the doctor. I was scheduled on 22nd, and they are not there.
So what are you going to do?
Maybe I'll go home and see a private doctor, because they are saying, so we hear the nurses are back, and I don't know when.
Yesterday was holiday, so because of that, I should come on Tuesday. That is why I'm here this morning. So unfortunately, when I came for the lab test, I came so that the nurses would direct me to the doctor. But unfortunately, when I came, they said nurses are on strike. So because of that, if I'm having the lab report, I should go to the house, then wait till the day that nurses will resume back to work. Then I will come. And they said only those on critical cases can wait and then hold on. A doctor will come and then attend to them. That's what they told us. So I'm waiting. If the doctor come and then they will attend to me. No, please. I just want to hold on and then see whether I'll be able to see the doctor, because they told me to come on Tuesday because yesterday was a holiday.
If you don't see the doctor, what you do?
Oh, please, I'll go back to the house.
Coming from?
I'm coming from Amasaman.
Amasaman, okay, what are you going to do?
I'm going to come and look my child at Ridge Hospital.
Okay.
I've heard it, but the doctors are looking at us. They are looking after us, but we didn't see any nurse there.
So you want the nurses to come back?
Yes, we want them to come back. Thank you.
So you've heard from some of the patients at the Accra Regional Hospital. The Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations says it will be meeting the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to continue their negotiations for their conditions of service, which is indeed the focal point for this industrial action. Speaking on Prime Morning on Joy Prime TV, Deputy Employment and Labour Relations Minister Bright Rekubrube said his outfit is consulting the various stakeholders to pave way for successful negotiations.
Yesterday was a holiday, and this whole thing started on Saturday. We have been in discussions. Sunday, even yesterday, holiday, we were still talking. So today, my minister has called me. We have agreed on certain things. I have also called the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission Chief Executive. We are going to have a meeting. We will have a meeting, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and then we will write to them, possibly start engaging them from tomorrow. But I am praying that they respect the injunction order and ask their staff to go back to work. They should know that this government has been the most tolerant, and if they will agree with me There are so many instances where we have had discussions, listened to them, their proposals that they bring. We have, reasoned with them. Even had 3 or 4 sessions of meetings with the managers of their health facilities, trying to see the possibility of some of these allowances being paid by the health facility. So it is not as if we are reneging. We are not. The last thing we would want to see is what is probably starting to emerge. So I'm pleading with them to go back to work and come back to the negotiating table for us to continue to have constructive discussions.
Is it a little too late? Well, Mr. Rekubrobe is also accusing the nurses of refusing to respect the law.
A law that enables them to probably go out, pick taxis or sit in their own cars and drive, and the police escorting them and ensuring that there is peace, absolute peace in Ghana, is the same law that we are guided when it comes to labor issues. So when it comes to these matters and a body doesn't want to respect the laws which in the morning allowed him or her to go out in peace, then we are in trouble. It must not be so.
Is that what you feel the association is doing? They are not respecting the law?
Absolutely.
Which law are they not respecting, Mr. Rekubrobe?
They are not respecting it because once the injunction is secured, Labour Commission had to go to High Court and secure the injunction. It's also a process. When they were served the notice on Thursday or so, just look at the timing. Within 24 hours, Labour Commission had acted with the due process of law and secured an injunction. What is happening is that the service of this injunction notice must not only be done and served on the person, him or herself. These things can be done. There are processes. We even have substituted services. There are many, many ways which we will tell that this person has been served.
Deputy Employment and Labour Relations Minister there, Mr. Rekubrobe, speaking to Daniel Dazi on Prime Morning. Joining me right now for us to have an update on what the situation is as far as resolving this impasse is David Chum Tinkran. He's a General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association. Mr. Tinkran, good afternoon and thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon and thank you for having me.
Let's start with the injunction. Have you received that injunction from the NLC?
Not as we speak. And I'm surprised that the Deputy Minister's assertion is riddled with speculation. In fact, they should take nurses serious in this country. Okay? We are not people that will defy orders from the court. We are very law-abiding citizens. If you have a nurse in your family and he or she is really a nurse, you understand the way they conduct themselves. Of course, you may find some few people that conduct themselves in a manner that does not befit the profession. But what I want to say is that we have not been served any injunction.
Okay.
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of any injunction. The Labour Minister...
We have not been served with any injunction as I speak.
Very well. The Labour and Employment Minister, Deputy Minister, indicates that they have been engaging you and that there are negotiations ongoing. It looks as if you're showing bad faith because there are concerns that you can't continue to be on strike and be at the negotiation table at the same time.
When he says they've been engaging us, what exactly does it mean? We haven't taken any intransigent posturing. The belligerent posturing of the employer is what has brought us to this far. This is needless. It was avoidable. We spoke to some people at higher places, but they are so comfortable, all right? And they think that, as usual, nurses are full of women. We can treat them the way we want. These things that we are asking for should have been done 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Why should somebody who has completed university for maybe 20 years, has practiced nursing for 20 years, or 15 years or 30 years, be asking for rent allowance? What are you talking about in this country?
Mr. Senkwa, I want us to deal with your demands holistically, because I want to ask you what the demands are so that you give me in bullets, one after the other, so every Ghanaian who is watching you can follow. But then I want you to deal with the issue about engagement. Are they engaging you or not? What did they tell you the last time you met?
The last time we met was Friday. They wrote us a letter. In that letter, the agenda of the meeting was to continue the negotiations. As humble and respectful as we are, and as law-abiding as we are, we went to the place because our employers are calling us. And we cannot say that. When we got there, we were asked virtually to explain ourselves why we are on strike. They wanted to interrogate us. They did not actually invite us to the negotiation table as the letter depicts. So we wanted to leave. But of course, they said we should have an informal discussion and see how best we can come to a certain amicable solution. But virtually, they invited us to explain ourselves why we have taken this course of action. An action we had already prompted them.
So this was last Friday. And you say the meeting was with who? NLC?
The meeting was with the negotiation table, not
I just want to know the particular...
the table. Not with National Labour Commission. We have never had any engagement with the National Labour Commission, except the fact that the Executive Secretary is all over saying that they've served us an injunction, which has never been served.
Okay, so you never had a meeting with the NLC. I just wanted to find out who engaged you on Friday, who you said was interrogating you rather than negotiating.
Of course, we met the negotiating team, which was made up of the sector minister, the deputy minister of finance, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission team. Basically, that's it.
Okay. Now let's look at the demands. I'm told, or I understand, you have about 9 of them. If you can give it to us bullet by bullet, if we can, summarize it a little. What are these demands you are asking for in this time, which you believe should have been, are long overdue, actually?
We're talking about rent allowance for nurses and midwives. You'll be surprised that the senior-most nurse in this country doesn't have rent allowance appearing on his or her payslip. Can you imagine? Having worked for almost 25 years after perhaps first degree and now maybe having a master's or a double master's or a PhD. All right, and that transcends down to the last person. We're asking for professional development allowance. Nursing is a skill acquisition program. All right, you develop your skill and you have to be knowledgeable as well. And there is something we call de-learning. Okay, when you don't practice what you have been taught for a long time, you will certainly forget it. So from time to time, you need to update your knowledge. I'm not talking about going to school. That is a different thing altogether. But in the course of your practice, you should be able to attend updates, in-service training and CPD points. Now, to be able to win CPD points, because you need that to be able to keep your PIN active so that you can be in the good books of the regulator, all right? Or the regulatory agency.
Yeah.
All these things cost for money. So if we are asking for a paltry percentage of our basic salary as professional development allowance, it's not something big. We are asking for fuel, asking for transportation allowance. Okay, the young nurses and midwives, they have to cross rivers, they have to, pick, of course, cars to work. They don't have cars on their own. Okay, they don't have means of transport. So if you're saying that give them a little amount of money to take truck and taxis and co, what's the big deal about it? I'm saying that all these we are asking for should have been done several years ago. We shouldn't be here at this time. It's just very, very regrettable looking at how hospitals have been deserted. This is not what we want to see.
Yeah,
my heart bleeds.
You've ended at 3. Is that all you're asking? The rent allowance, professional development allowance, fuel/transportation allowance?
We are asking for a core allowance. Core-in allowance for physician assistants and certified registered anesthetists, midwife, and the rest of it. They're asking for book and research allowance. And mind you, the 8 items that we are asking is only 4 that will go to everybody. The rest of the 4 are specific, and it goes to certain specific skill mix within the profession. Okay. For instance, the book and research allowance is not going to every nurse or midwife or certified registered anesthetist. It's going to those who teach in our various nursing training colleges. We are asking for on-call allowance for certified registered anesthetists, for physician assistants, for those specialist nurses and midwives, critical care nurses, ophthalmic care nurses, ENT nurses. There are very few in the system. We were in Ghana when we decided to send a plane load of critical care nurses to Barbados. The few ones left are breaking their back, and we are asking a little amount of money to be given to them. How difficult is that? Okay. What we are asking for, I'm saying they are basic allowances that even my younger brother that I saw through university is collecting. Okay. So from your perspective, the posturing of your employer says no to these demands. Very belligerent, very intransigent, very belligerent. It appears as if we don't deserve what we are asking. And that is very unfortunate. That nurses, as usual, when we threaten them, when we intimidate them a little, they will curtail to our pressure. How can you move to the High Court, secure an injunction at 5 p.m. and purport to have served on people on Friday evening? Do I stay at the office till 5 p.m.? You feel they are threatening you? So we are not available. As far as I'm concerned, we have not been served. You feel? Of course. I mean, if your employer calls you, to the negotiation table or writes you a letter ostensibly with an agenda to negotiate, and you get there and you are being interrogated, what is that supposed to mean? If a labor commission that has the powers of a high court, which is supposed to be an arbiter in impasses of this nature, move to the high courts without exercising its judicial powers, or if you like, move to a high court to secure injunction to be served on you at 5 p.m. What does that supposed to mean? You see that as a threat. It just intimidates you. Okay. I want you to listen. Yeah, I want you to listen to the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Okoboy. But before that, I want to take your quick reaction. We have been across the country with our correspondents who are telling us the effect of this strike. Someone has a tumor on the head. For several hours, she has had to go through the pain, and they've had to tie it with a cloth. A pregnant woman was turned away. It looks as if these people are being held to ransom. And I'm not saying you don't have a right to ask for the demands, but these people who are vulnerable, obviously, are being held at ransom. Well, how do you respond to people who think this way? Well, I mean, they are entitled to their views, but who is holding them to ransom? It is nurses and midwives, certified registered anesthetists, and physician assistants who have withdrawn their services. The rest of the health workers are there. Why wouldn't they do what is expected of them? Why wouldn't they do what is required by their training for these people? Who is holding who to ransom? We are not holding anybody to ransom. The thought is that without the nurses... Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, actually. The thought is that without the nurses, it's difficult for the doctors to process these patients who are coming through. And so, essentially, healthcare is at a standstill and people are suffering. How does that make you feel, personally? It's unfortunate. I'm saying that we shouldn't have got into this place at all. This was purely avoidable if it wasn't the intransigent, belligerent posturing of the employer and its agents. As far as I'm concerned, this was purely avoidable. It's unnecessary for nurses to go on strike. But look, we were pressed to the wall, and we can certainly not go through the wall. We have to bounce back, and this is the result of we bouncing back after hitting the wall. We'll get to talk about bouncing back and the way towards that bounce. But the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Okoboy, is confident
that between you'll be able to resolve these concerns in the next 48 hours. Well, according to him, government has already been looking into the condition of service for nurses and midwives for you anyway, and there hasn't been any challenge implementing them. He wants you, the nurses, to call off the strike and return to the negotiation table. I want you to listen to him. When I return, we'll talk about the way forward.
The last time I checked, I think the ministry, because we couldn't get to common grounds, brought in the Labour Commission. And you know our laws allow the Labour Commission to be the arbitrator. The Labour Commission went to court to get an injunction, not an injunction that disrespects their concerns, but an injunction that will give them more space so that they can negotiate. Whatever the concerns that are there, it will take talk to resolve them. So all the court did was that I've given you 10 days. The injunction is not ad infinitum. It's specific. 10 days to engage. And apparently the last time I checked, their leader said, well, they've not gotten the service. I only appeal to them that this particular application injunction is around. They should try and get to the table, and we are committed to helping them. Look, if this government were not committed, there is no way in the middle of a pandemic, when inflows have gotten down in every country in the world, there's no way we would have given them tax exemptions. We have exempted every health worker in this country, including nurses, from paying income tax. Teachers are paying income tax. Soldiers are paying income tax. Policemen are paying income tax. Akufo-Addo says no health workers should pay income tax, from the mortuary to the security man at the gate. So that is a sign of compassion and support and an appreciation for the work they do. We've given clearance for over 90,000 health workers in 3.5 years. Never in the history of this country. All nurses who were at home have been cleared by this government. The few who have not been captured are on NAPCO. Before Nana became president, all these nurses were at home, having no experience, nothing to take care of themselves. So Akufo-Addo has demonstrated that he has a big heart for all citizens, and I'll plead with them to look at that particular gesture and come to the table.
But how soon do you expect to reach a consensus?
In the next 48 hours, I am optimistic that we'll get a solution. I thank you.
That's the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Okoboy. Mr. Tinkrine, how do you respond to that?
Well, he's expressed his opinion. He's entitled to it. What does employing 90,000 health workers got to do with condition of service of nurses and midwives? We are making reasonable demands. If they are minded, they should meet us halfway. We will go back to the world and do what we love doing. I don't want to follow those things and those politicking. If you have employed 90,000 healthcare workers, what does that got to do with the service condition of a nurse or a midwife?
What about the point he makes about tax exemptions, for example, for health workers? He says it's a sign of good faith that they are committed. This government, I should say, is committed to taking care of, nurses and doctors, people within the healthcare delivery system.
The tax component is a percentage of a basic salary. He's a medical doctor. Whatever he finds on his payslip, he's entitled to it because he merits it. We are asking for a paltry percentages for nurses and midwives. He should respect that tax incentive. So the smaller your salary, the smaller or the lower that tax he's talking about. How much was that tax incentive? Yes, of course. It's a good thing. I commended the government variously when it was done. But that is not a reason why it should hold us to ransom with respect to our condition of service demands.
Very well. I tell you what, hang on for me.
He has a very juicy condition of service. He should enjoy it. He should enjoy it. You're asking something paltry for nurses and midwives, and that's what we're asking.
Hang on for me. We just the Deputy Employment Minister says he has an intervention here. Let's quickly hear him. Mr. Akubobe, thank you for your time this afternoon and for calling into the show. What is this intervention? Please go ahead.
Gifty, thank you very much. I think that it is important that we try to correct some of these things that our health leaders would want to put up, largely because we are not in normal times. And it appears as if one is doing a bidding which is cutting the general public against the other. And you will agree with me that this is not a government that merits that kind of thing.
Just a quick one, Mr. Bobe. You indicated that you want to clarify a few things that they have said, I believe. Yes, what's this clarification?
What I wanted to clarify is that I have 10 requests on my table, and we have almost acceded to all of them and met them, except probably for the fuel and then the rent. And you will agree with me that matters of rent in all institutions, there's nowhere rent is paid across board, and rent is being paid to some category of staff. And this is the discussion which we are with them. Similarly, the same thing applies to fuel. All the rest that they have said, we have met them. The only point in discussion is that some of them, let us go back, let us do the calculations, and then come back to table. At the last engagement, they were given 4 weeks so that we will go and plan this. This includes one, the uniform which they talked about. If government decides to probably agree to the uniform, no problem, we will agree. But
hang on, Mr. Rakuprobe. When you say uniform, you mean the uniform implementation of the request they are making?
No, they requested for uniform allowance.
As in, okay.
Yes, uniform allowance, as in the green and the white which they put on. So, and they wanted 10% of their basic. And I'm saying that we have met them. We've agreed that that's no problem. We cannot put that on your payroll, but then we will do the calculation, and then at the end or beginning of the year, we pay it as one-off. So these things have been agreed. Professional development allowance, the non-basic core, all of these things have been agreed.
Except
a sign of good faith.
Except fuel and rent allowance and the uniform allowance, which you will not put on the payroll, but will have a sort of side agreement to pay.
Exactly, and even book and research allowance, which we have also agreed that we will give to the degree awarding institutions, just like we do to those in the universities, the lecturers.
All right, let me just, Mr. Tinkwan, you've heard this. This looks like some positive way forward. What is the way forward for you, really? It seems you are muted, Mr. Tinkwan.
I wish the deputy minister was at the negotiation table. If he says we have agreed, we have agreed. He agreed with who? To what? What we are saying is very simple. Look, most of the things, they are asking us to go to the facility. They want to burden the IGF, internally generated fund. And we are saying that that is not sustainable. The 2016 condition of service, that expired in 2018. Everything in there was agreed, but go to the facility to pick it up. And it never worked. So we have agreed. He's saying that what? Book and research allowance to degree awarding institutions. It has been agreed by who and who. They said they should go to the facility to pick the money. And we are saying that we will not accept such a thing. So that is their position. In fact, he's actually talking about their position, not an agreed position.
Okay.
All right. Of course, we brought a proposal, and then they also brought a counter proposal. So everything that he alluded to are their proposal. Because
not
we
an agreement.
Said variously, not agreement. We have said that telling us to go back to the facility to pick those things that we have requested for from internally generated fund is not going to work.
It's not going to work for it.
2 years ago, the same thing happened, and we did not benefit.
Okay, so 2 years ago, the same thing happened. Mr. Rakupo, but the point he's making is that this has happened before. And he's saying that what you are proposing has not been agreed upon. And it is to put pressure on the internally generated funds, and that will not work for them.
Dipsy, the way forward is not to go on strike. As he clearly alluded, we are talking. We are talking.
But Mr. Rakubebe, hang on, Mr. Rakubebe, you indicated to us that there has been some agreements which, put some of us at ease. But apparently it hasn't been agreed upon. It is a proposal, a counter proposal that you brought to their proposal. So it is not an agreement, first of all. Secondly, please let me land. Please let me land, sir. So that's the first one. The second point they make is that I'm just listing it for you, sir. I disagree
with you totally.
Okay, hang on, sir. I'm just putting this to you so that you respond to it. So you get to respond. What I'm saying is that from what I'm hearing from the side of the nurses, they have not agreed on anything with you as yet. Secondly, they say that this has happened 2 years ago, so it's like something they've gone through before. So they are at a place where it's very familiar, and government has not lived up to its to expectation. So please come in with the response, sir.
Gifty.
Yes, sir.
I would wish that you found out from them which of these things that they tabled that we both have agreed.
You want me to ask them which ones you've agreed upon?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Tinkwa, is there anything that you've agreed upon at all?
Of course.
Okay.
There are a few things that we have agreed upon.
Right.
One is the 8% non-basic allowance.
Looks like I've lost him. We'll try and
First April 2021. Back and forth, they agreed that they will peg it at October, and then the arrears will be deferred to next year. We said fine. We tabled uniform allowance. They said they won't pay it monthly. They'll pay it one-off. We have agreed to that. Basically, these are the only two things that we have agreed.
Okay, so there has been some agreement at least.
Exactly. There has been some agreement, and we keep talking.
Okay.
So the point I'm making is that we have not gotten to
Mr. Okubo, you just interrupted his points. Let him make his point. We'll come to you.
We cannot table 8 items, and they will agree to 6, and we will proceed to strike. We are not stupid. What are you saying?
Okay.
We are very reasonable people.
Gentlemen, at the end of the day, Mr. Tinkran, I've run out of time, but at the end of the day, it is a pregnant woman in the northern region who is suffering and on the verge of losing their child. It is the woman who has traveled all the way from the Volta region to Tamale with a tumor on the head who stands at the risk of dying. What do we do going forward? The people of Ghana deserve better.
We shouldn't have gotten to this point. You don't blame the nurse.
Can you come to a compromise for the sake of the people who may die?
No problem. We have been invited by what's the name? Labor Commission. Tomorrow we will go. All right. And if the injunction is properly served, we will go by the dictates of the law. I've told you already that nurses are very responsible and rational human beings.
Okay.
We will not go against the law.
Mr. Tinkran.
They will not treat us for a ride.
Okay. Mr. Tinkran, I say a very big thanks to you, and I'm very hopeful, very, very hopeful, that in the next 48 hours or even 24 hours, a pregnant woman won't feel like they're going to lose their child and probably lose a child, and a woman won't die, a man won't die because nurses are unhappy. And Mr. Brobe, thank you for your intervention, but what really can you also get to a compromise on with these nurses so that we can end this? Nobody is benefiting from this at all.
Yes, I'm happy the representative of the nurses are now acceding that tomorrow, God willing, he will come to the Labour Commission. So we are happy to be at the Labour Commission, resolve this matter. It is not our wish that we even have this banter on air.
Yeah.
Not at all.
It shouldn't be. But the point is that they feel that government
and the poor pregnant woman is getting what she
deserves. Mr. Bobe, I just want to make this point, though, that the point they've made is the feeling that government over the years have taken them for granted, and he keeps making that point. So hopefully at the next meeting, that won't, be the situation.
If we take our word, this is not a government that takes them for granted. All our engagements, we have initiated it. So, you should know that all the meetings we have had with them is at the instance of government. This is a government so sensitive to health workers, and we will not sit down and let them deteriorate at all.
Mr. Bebe, thank you very much for calling into the show. Mr. Bebe is the Deputy Labour and Employment Minister who had called in to put in a few clarifications. You also earlier had David Chum Tinkran, who speaks for the Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association. It's been a lot of back and forth. Mr. Tinkran, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to great news tomorrow, and I'm very hopeful that we'll get that and we'll hear it here on the show. You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty Andopia. And if you have to go to the hospital, I hope that you get some help. But if not, you can try the private hospitals. Hopefully you get help there. But by tomorrow, we hope things will get better. Do stay with us. I'll be right back. I'll tell you about another worrying situation. Accidents. We've had so many of them in the last 2 weeks already, claiming about 30 lives. We'll talk about that when we return. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, the last 1 week has not been a pleasant one on our roads. There have been several road crashes, leaving some persons dead and many more injured. Some of them are still battling for their lives. All these are happening in spite of many interventions rolled out by the National Road Safety Authority, the media, especially JoyNews. With our Arrive Alive campaign, among others, you could expect that this would have stopped, but it hasn't. Well, today we're taking a big pause to reflect on the factors which are making it impossible or, well, difficult to keep our roads safe. We have the National Road Safety Authority joining us for this conversation shortly. But first, let's give you a sense of how road crashes have devastated this country the past 1 week alone. So on the 10th of September 2020, there was one on the Tema motorway here in Accra. The 12th, which is 2 days after Betoi Volta region, 5 people died, 4 people were injured. 3 days after that, Chichire, that's the Accra Kumasi Highway in the Eastern region, 17 people died and as many as 50 people were injured. Again, on that same day, Gomwa Adam, Accra Cape Coast Highway, 6 people died and several others were injured. Count back to 4 days after that day, in Offenso near Ashanti region, 6 people died, young footballers. 30 of them were injured. On the 19th of September, which is just this weekend, 2 people died in Kaswa. A driver and the conductor of the vehicle died when they were making a U-turn in the middle of the road and got crushed by a tipper truck. We'll tell you also about the story in Wale Wale, which happened also over the weekend, which involved some police officers, about 4 of them. 1 of them died on the spot. Another was in coma, is still in coma, I should say, in hospital, and 2 of them were severely injured. Now, these are just figures that you see here. It may still not mean anything to you. Those are numbers, but they represent human lives. A mother, a father, a son, daughters, brothers, a wife, even friends. Well, just last Sunday, a driver and his mate, like I indicated, they had decided to make that simple U-turn, you can call it. But that turn happened to be the very last one for them. This incident happened at Kaswa. Latif Idris reads this report.
According to eyewitnesses, the Ford Transit vehicle was making a U-turn at Big Apple when it was crashed by the Winneba-bound tipper truck from Kaswa. Eyewitnesses say the tipper truck was driving at top speed. Here are some eyewitnesses narrating what they saw.
Nipa 2, mate and the driver, and I know more
The driver and his conductor were in the car, then started doing a U-turn to the other side of the road. The tipper truck was also coming with top speed at the other side and ended up crashing the van. It happened almost a minute to 4 at dawn.
Almost a minute to 4.
I had woken up preparing to go to work. I heard a loud noise and we saw the collision between the tipper truck and the van. We then saw the driver's body move to the passenger side of the van. We could not open the door, but forced to get the driver out. He had collapsed. Someone raised an alarm for us to check if there were other people in the car. We then looked under the car and saw someone's legs hanging. We realized later it was the driver's mate. The driver's mate died on the spot, while the driver was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. This is the second accident in this area in less than 5 days. 6 passengers died on the spot after the vehicle they were traveling in were involved in a head-on collision at Gomwa Adam, near Gomwa and Taze on the Kaswa Cape Coast Highway in the central region.
So 23 last week, and then by the weekend, 9 people had also died. Well, I pray you won't be in this situation. But then we need you to support in addressing this particular problem of road accidents. They're caused by human beings, as was evident in during the lockdown. Because during the lockdown, the figures were dramatically reduced. Let's all arrive alive. Joining us via Zoom right now is David Osafo Adontain, Director in charge of Planning and Programming at the National Road Safety Authority. Mr. Adontain, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, my dear.
So, are you surprised with the figures you're seeing right now? Just last week, you have to add 23 to the 9 that happened between just Saturday and Sunday. That's pretty alarming.
Yes, you're right. Good afternoon to all our cherished listeners or viewers. And I know that we are not in good times at all, considering the series of crashes that were recorded in the past week or 2 weeks. Put together, the number of persons who've lost their lives is in excess of 30. If the figures you are mentioning to go by, and what we have here, the police are telling us that we are in excess of 30. It could be 31, 32. But even if it is 1, we're still not comfortable. We're still not happy. But the trend is not surprising. In this period, if you look at the past, the trend has been about the same. When you hit September, going into October, November, and December, we always hit these periods as we declare them as a period that is not the normal period for us at all. You know what Christmas means to Ghanaians, and you know what goes into it. People are very anxious to prepare themselves. They want to make money. They want to do business, to go travel across the country, going to arrange for their products to sell. And so you find some drivers taking advantage of that opportunity to also maximize their revenue or their income. And they end up misbehaving, not complying with the rules and regulations on the road. And this is usually the outcome of it. So we are not comfortable. I mean, we are worried. It's a bad situation for us.
During the lockdown period, I think somewhere from March till, say, August or a little earlier, we had a conversation where it was indicated that the lockdown period seemed to have recorded very low accidents. And we're all excited about it. Based on what you have just said, we know the trend and how it goes. Get into Christmas, get into election. How do you respond to the thoughts that the National Road Safety Authority perhaps went to bed because the figures from the lockdown period looked good?
Rather, without the National Road Safety Authority's intervention, together with our stakeholders, the situation would have been worse. And during the lockdown period, in spite of the COVID pandemic and the risk, the National Road Safety Authority did not go to sleep. We were still working. We were still engaging some groups. The good thing was that there was not much of vehicles coming onto the roads to ply their various businesses. There were few people in town, and in some cases, there were no people at all because we're all locked up in our rooms.
Yeah.
And automatically, naturally, if you have vehicles not interacting with people or human beings on the road, then you will find the figures coming down. And that is exactly what happened. Now, it was when His Excellency the President, of course, opened up and the lockdown, now we were all asked to go by, and it was opened up. This is what happened. People have taken the law into their own hands now. And they are operating as if there's nothing at stake. I perhaps see it that some people think whatever they lost during the lockdown, they want to make it up. So now they are making it up at the expense of people's lives.
So what is
they are not realizing.
So what is the National Road Safety Authority's plan, deliverables in the scheme of affairs? Mr. Dante?
The National Road Safety, now I'm here.
Yes. Please go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, please.
Yes. The National Road Safety Authority in the past number of months now, since March after the lockdown, we stood on our grounds. Now, we partnered with the media in particular. We have a lot of engagements with the Ghana Journalists Association. We have taken a lot of platforms of the media houses, including yours, and look at how we're working together for live campaign. And on the ground, especially in the regions, districts, and rural areas, are engaging Ghanaians. The police have also taken up the challenge, and they are on the streets and on the roads. They are also doing their bit of enforcement. We think that together, education and enforcement has been very high in this past number of months. I think what is difficult for us now is the people to accept the challenge and to discipline themselves.
I see.
That is the difficulty we are having. And I'm talking about how drivers in particular hit the road and not complying with the rules and the regulations, especially that regards speeding and wrongful overtaking. The recent crashes, if you look at the circumstances leading to the crashes, as regards some of the revealing factors of the investigation, we have speeding being very high, travel speeds very, very high, and most of them wanting to go quickly to overtake. You have a particular driver on a highway, want to overtake 3-4 vehicles at a time.
That's because they know nothing is going to happen to them. Nobody is monitoring. We talked about speed cameras. The National Road Safety Authority mentioned speed cameras. That hasn't happened, and they know that over here in Ghana you can jump the red light as many times as possible as long as there is no police station there. They know nothing will happen to them. In that case, would you say the authority has not met its deliverables?
If you look at mandates, the National Road Safety Authority, we don't install speed cameras.
It was part of a program you mentioned you were embarking upon, wasn't it?
Yes, we're coming. So we also don't fix roads. So people get it wrong. Sometimes they think that if the roads are bad, for example, people are talking about dualization of our major highways. And the thing is the National Road Safety Authority that should come and do the dualization. No, we don't do dualization. But we are advocating for. Okay. And we have been at the forefront. We are at the forefront under the Arrive Alive campaign, using the multimedia and other media houses to call for the dualization of our highways. Indeed, if you look at the kind of awareness creation, the sensitization and education, it is very high.
And we should have some reaction. We should have some positive response to that, I believe. Mr. Dante, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but this is certainly a conversation we'll have. And I used to say that sometimes I run out of questions when there are more accidents, because sometimes you just don't know what else to ask. But hopefully we'll find a solution, especially on this Chichi Railroad where, just about 2 accidents happened in 1 week. It doesn't make sense. Hopefully we'll look at that and more. Mr. Dante, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Well, can you believe it's just 76 days to the election? You still have to arrive alive. Well, the Presbyterian Church of Ghana has launched a campaign aimed at ensuring a peaceful election in December. The campaign, dubbed I Stand for Peace, will involve the use of 10 eminent persons drawn from the clergy, academia, and civil society. And to champion the cause of peace through multiple platforms available to them. At the launch of this campaign, the national president of the Young People's Guild of the Presbyterian Church of Ghana, Ezekiel Ajololo, charged the youth not to yield to politicians who only want to use them to perpetrate violence at the polls.
When we talk about violence in the country, they normally fall on the youth to use or they use them as instruments to do this kind of acts. So as we try to preach issue of peace in the country, I want us to look at these three things as we work on the mind of young people. The first thing I want to talk about is change the negative attitude toward people. Let's teach the youths or the young people to change their negative attitude towards toward people in their communities, especially how they communicate when they are talking about political issues. All those things should be worked on. And also changing their tribal and religious belief system concerning political issues. Many times you find people in a certain tribe and they say that for us, this tribe, we belong to this group of party. And so when you come in, we will do a lot of things against you. Let's try to change that perception. I think currently we have a lot of such concern being raised in the country. And so we need to look at that and change the perception of the young people about that. And I think when we do that, it will help so much. And the third thing has to do with teach them to learn how to combine enthusiasm with patience. I know that we, the young people, we are so much courageous. We have the energy. We can do a lot of things. But let me tell you, without patience, you may pass the kind of progress or the kind of talent or the kind of gifts God has for you. Because of the energy, you will pass it. But I want to encourage all young people. Yes, you have the energy, you have the zeal, the enthusiasm is there, but then let's add patience to it. We want better governance system. We want better employment. We want a lot of things to change. But then let's add patience to it. And I think when we do that, the peace that we need at this time, it will.
So let's have a little of a conversation on the back of this. I have here in studio Apostle Samuel Gakbeto. He's area head Anya Ablekuma and also coordinator of Agents of Peace campaign. You're welcome, sir, Apostle Gakbeto. I also have here in studio Pastor Henry Akunai. He's a district pastor, Pantan Church of Pentecost and secretary of Agents of Peace. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let me start with you, Apostle. It's been we're 76 days to the election. What are your observations so far as ensuring that where we are going will be peaceful?
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to come your way this way, and thank you for having us here. I think that I'm listening to what is going on in our nation regarding the elections. So far, I think probably because of the COVID situation and the restrictions that have been placed on mass gatherings and all of that, we see that we have not yet seen a vigorous election activities in terms of campaigns, in terms of rallies and all of that. So in this case, maybe COVID has been a blessing in this way. Otherwise, around this time, you would have seen a lot of tension within the system. But so far, I think that it's not been too bad.
As it has been the previous years.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly.
Pastor Henry, what is your own observation? Would you say that really COVID has minimized it, or are there still tensions that perhaps we have not magnified as we have in the past elections?
Thank you very much. Now, looking at the dynamics of the current politics, especially the fact that there is a previous president who wants to come back, and also a current one who wants to maintain office, the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
And because of this, even though we don't see the escalation of violence, the undertones are there.
Okay.
You see them in statements made, aspersions being cast, and languages which are unfair.
Yeah.
And so we don't see the physical manifestation of the violent things that had characterized previous elections or campaigning. But then the undercurrent, these things are there, and we need to make sure we act proactively to prevent this thing from escalating.
You talk about being proactive, and I want to find out how dangerous will you say what you have just described is? Because you can have a situation where you're not aware. So let me use COVID, for example, where people who are asymptomatic think that they are free because you're not showing symptoms. But we've also seen instances where the symptoms won't show up now, but they can show up at a point where your body can't resist anymore and can kill you. So you're looking at a situation where it's more like a time bomb kind of thing. It won't show up now, it won't manifest now like you're saying, but on the day, or perhaps the days to come after the election, then it blows up. Is that something you foresee, and how can we deal with this going forward?
I'm only hoping that COVID will eventually be minimized, the effect, the impact, if only we observe the protocol that have been put in place. Now, if we fail to do that, then we can look to the gloomy aspect that there may be an escalation that may affect the joyful destiny that we expect during the election time. So now, what I'm looking at is the tension within the nation that is being somehow minimized by COVID. However, if we observe protocols and education continues, we're going to have a dual purpose being achieved, minimizing COVID as well as ensuring peaceful elections.
Apostle Gakpato, how do you see this? How really, and you are coming from the church, so let me talk about the church. There are so many people who gather in the church, and even though today people can go to church, they're still engaged online. How can the church step in to engage at least the constituents, which is a large number, so that on our part, you know, and when I say our, I mean the church's part, there can be some sanity there.
Right, thank you. Okay, so just flowing from him, you realize that the media is doing a very good work this time. You see the dynamics of the two people, that's especially the big shots, NDC and then MPP. We are doing more of issue engagement. You have a former president seeking a re-election. This is the first time. And so people are now seeking to look at what are the records showing, and then compare to these records. So there's been a lot of engagement, and we are more into issue-based discussion.
So that's what's good.
And that's very perfect.
What's not good, and how can we deal with that which is not good?
Of course, what is not good is everybody is seeking power. And so we are casting instigations on one another. I mean, we are using languages that are not appropriate. And that is where the church's role is critical. You come to to Ghana, we are about 71.2%. And so what we're doing now is educating the church to see each member as an agent of peace. In other words, if I know how powerful my tongue is and how it can bring violence, then I will have to desist from speaking any uncalled for language. That would bring a lot of tensions within the system.
So
using the platforms of the church to educate the constituent of the church is a very important
one of the ways to deal with this. We wrap up the conversation, but I want to take your final thoughts on and this. Pastor Henry, what we described you as agent of peace, because this is a campaign that you're embarking upon. Tell us a little bit about it and how perhaps people can be involved as we all push the agenda of peace.
Thank you very much. In 2016, the church launched the maiden edition of the Agent of Peace campaign to ensure that we play our part towards the 2016 election, before, during, and then after. By God's grace, it went on successfully. And so it became part of our social responsibility approaches to ensure national peace, cohesion, and then sustained development. Because of this, we found it necessary as a church to relaunch or do the second edition this year, 2020, in the hope that as more and more people become aware of the need to work together as a nation, as one people, for common destiny. The church, working in line with various stakeholder groups, we can together forge ahead to ensure peace prevails in Ghana before, during, and after the elections.
So speak briefly to the people who are watching you right now, whether they are Pentecost Church members or not, about a very brief message of peace as we wrap up.
Fellow Ghanaians, This is an invitation to all of us, wherever we are. I know you are happy when I use the statement, but that is very important for us to know we are working together as a team. I want to encourage all of us. There are 4 key areas we need to look at. Things we need to aspire to, a better Ghana. Things we need to abstain from, violence. Things we need to promote, peace. And things we need to be committed to, faithfulness in ensuring that the elections go on peacefully for Ghana to move ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a very nice way to put it and wrap it up nicely for me. But Apostle Gakpeto, your final words would be what? And
right.
Again, speak to the people who are watching, Christians. If we pride ourselves in being Christians, then we should live a life that's worthy of it. So,
right. Thank you very much. So, once again, fellow Ghanaians, this is a statement that we have always come to enjoy because our president uses it. But it brings the commentary that exists between us as people of this nation. The Bible says in Psalm 34, verse 14b, which is the theme for the Agent of Peace campaign of the Church of Pentecost, is seek peace and pursue it. And therefore, as people of faith, we are calling on all Ghanaians, and for that matter, all religious people of this nation, that let us do things that will promote the peace of this nation. We have only one Ghana. There is no place we can call home. We can travel all over the place, but we will always come back to call Ghana our homeland. And therefore, everything we can do to pursue this peace that God is giving to us, we must ensure that we do it. And for our young people, this is our nation. We shouldn't destroy a nation that we are seeking to rule and to take charge over. And therefore, let us all be encouraged to pursue peace, to seek it, and to do the things that will ensure its sustainability.
And pursuing peace, I have a friend in Sudan who says, look, the things I've seen here, you don't want to experience it. So let's all pursue peace. Thank you so much for coming, gentlemen. Apostle Samuel Gakpeto is area head, Anya Abdekuma, and coordinator of Agent of Peace campaign. Pastor Henry Akonai is district pastor, Pantam Pentecost Church, Church of Pentecost, who joined us for that peace talk. Thank you very much once again. Now, it's been weeks of flooding from heavy rains coupled with spillage of the Bagre Dam up north. We brought you stories of the devastation, the deaths and the loss of properties, including 10-year-old children. And this time round, your most credible news sources embarking on Up to Us campaign to raise funds for supporting those flood victims. My colleague, Kojo Yankson, has been touring the the northeast region and upper east region to assess the extent of damage. Here is what he found.
Martina, this has been quite a revelation, but you, of course, have been telling the story from day one.
Yeah.
How did you first get to know about communities like this that had been so devastated by the floods?
Now, we anticipated we would have floods in communities that lie on the White Volta, but we didn't estimate it this much. And so when it started in the upper east, it was just a matter of time. It will get to northeast, it will come to northern region, then it will go to the Savannah region. I mean, once they start, the water starts coming, you know that it will go through these areas. And so we anticipated. So I got a call one early morning from a colleague. He said, did you hear of the floods? It started. I said, wow, which community? He said, Nawuni has been hit. So I called the assemblyman. And he said, yes, it's true, and this is what is happening. Several people have been displaced, farmlands destroyed, and what to eat has become a problem. And so I thought that we needed to start something, and that's how come we came in and started telling the story. And I must say that it has helped. Yes, it's helped, but it could have been better, you know, if people continue to help. Yes, it will go a long way in making these people, they can be comfortable. I mean, you saw the classrooms, they are sleeping in more than maybe 50 people in a classroom. I mean, you can't have comfort in such a place, but people have to stay in these places. And so if help comes, it will go a long way in making these people feel at least human, I should say.
Yeah. Now, you've lived here, what, your whole life, right? Have you ever seen anything like this?
Nothing like this. I mean, we've seen flood, and I covered some floods 3 years ago, but it wasn't devastating as this. The first flood I covered around here, I mean, the water wasn't close to where we've seen. And these people you speak to would also tell you that, look, we have never seen water come close to us this much. You know, somebody said that since he was born, 40 years, he's never seen anything like this before. And now he's seeing it. And it's not just these communities, several other communities. Now we can't even cross to the island communities. The island communities are cut off from the rest of the world. They would see the world only if this water ceases. And when is that going to happen?
Good question. In fact, are you worried that if there is more rain, then we will see even worse than what we've had so far?
You've seen it yourself. I mean, we've had some few sunshine and so it's seeding. But if it continues, if we have more rains, 2, 3, these places will go back again. And initially you had to just sit in a canoe and come straight to where the school is. And so if we have more rains, we probably will have more than what we've seen already.
So what you mean is when it first happened, you would have to go all the way into the school with a canoe?
With a canoe, yes.
Right.
And the water went up to almost the veranda. And
Thank you very much for staying with us here on the Pulse. Gary Alsmith with the sports. We are continuing our updates on the story that happened this weekend in the Ashanti region in the town of Afrancho, where we had young footballers die as they were going for player registration. Now, the juvenile team were made up of young players, and their handlers were headed to the town to having undergone their district codes football registration exercise. Here with me is Sami Enim. He's a member of the GFA Executive Committee, just to get a bit of, so we know that the GFA have visited them. The EXCO have also decided to give this month's bonuses, totaling close to about 60,000 Ghana cedis to them as well. Is there any updates that we should know about?
Yeah, as we speak, our member on the grounds, Achi, is in contact with the families. We're trying to see how best we can liaise with the families and make sure we give the children a befitting burial, and then any other thing that we can do moving forward, we can do it. It's just a sad situation. It's a sad situation, and to be honest, I mean, obviously there'll be blame game all the time, but as we reported here earlier, the GFA have been involved in digitization efforts to ensure that kids like we had on Saturday do not have to travel, to these towns to be able to get their registration done. So just to give you an idea, at the national level, FIFA have what they call the TMS, where digitization is used to do player registration. At the regional level, that is also done. But at the district level, where kids have to travel maybe about 20 minutes or something, they have to personally go there to do that. And we understand that the GFA is working to face off that, physical regime as well. Yes, it's part of the projects that we are doing under the FIFA projects, and very soon, if all things go clear, you'll definitely hear from us on it. We're trying to make things easy for everybody to develop the game. Like you said, we're creating wealth and then igniting passion. So if we want to create wealth for everybody, things must be done in a simpler way so that we can develop the game better. So what you are saying is that the FA is looking at ways to, phase out the situation where kids have to personally go travel distances. That's the plan. Yes. That's definitely something that will happen. The other part of it is that if we are able to build on that one, we'll try to also develop more better. Yeah. Where maybe even if you have to register a kid, maybe if it's a national thing, the states, even now that the Ghana is going Ghana card and all those things, it will get to a time where everybody will know where a kid is coming from, easily per your stats that you provide. Your details. So those ones will be imputed in the system, and it will be easier for everybody. So gradually we'll get there. It's just sad that sometimes it has to happen this way. You can imagine how you feel as a parent, and you don't know what these children will become. And so it's sad, but we live with it and we try to do the right thing moving forward. Okay. So again,
what a lot of people have been wondering is the fact that these kids, you know, they hopped into a car, they went to another town to do their player registration. We've known that this system has existed, you know, from when we were kids as well. So please explain to us briefly how the new system, give us an idea, of course, not in specifics, but give us an idea of what the FA is trying to achieve.
Well, you know, if you even come back to the reality, we'll still transport ourselves to wherever. There will be transportation, there will be movement of goods and services, people, and each and every day. Yeah. So it's something that you can't do anything about it. The only difference is that what we try to do with the registration will make it simpler and easier. Like I told you, maybe if it gets to a national level where even the state is able to adopt that digitization system where people's details will just bring out everything.
You mean like biographical details?
Biodata. So gradually we will get there. But with this particular one, we can only try to do our best with, like, we've committed our allowances to the victims. We've also made our people keep in contact with their families, try to be with them in every part of the process till the burial proper. And then we've also kept contact with the local authorities. Our ESCO member, Fred Achi, is there, our regional chairman, Osetutu, and then Kamarat, who's an NGC member, and the other RFA members are all in constant contact with the families. We can do much better, like doing anything than being with them. We can't do anything else apart from as it stands now. But developing the game further, maybe gradually, if we get to the level where states will provide buses. I remember those days, school teams can use omnibus and Tata bus and those things. Osa bus and those things. We're hoping we'll get there. Now we have Metro Mass. If we get to that level where the state will support.
So basically the GFA, I mean, I know you've done stuff with Intercity, STC and all that, so it's part of a plan. Nice one.
It takes you there. Intercity has started. We've told you that we'll do something.
No problem.
Gradually, we'll get to this level where we'll also go to the next level for the clubs.
So succinctly, he's explained, Sami Anim is a member of the GFA Exco, how this unfortunate accident came at a time when they had even started implementing and doing stuff to ensure that the registration process for kids around the country will be simpler. Thank you, Sami, for your time. And that's it for the sport. I'm Gary Al Smith. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
You've been a great guest. Let's do this again tomorrow. My name is Gifty Andopia. Many thanks for your time.